Thank you to our sponsor, EJ Cards, a small but motivated company specializing in cards. EJ Cards believe passionately in great bargains and excellent service, which is why they commit themselves to give you the best of both. If you're looking for something new, you're in the right place. EJ Cards strive to be industrious and innovative, offering customers something they want, putting their desires at the top of the priority list. Find EJ Cards at www.ejcards.com.au or shop 394 to 398 Middleborough Road, Blackburn, Victoria, and also find them on Facebook. Thank you very much, EJ Cards, for sponsoring us.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 38 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Amy, joined as always by Russell Gibson.
Greetings.
Lots to talk about this week. It's just you and I again.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
No guests this week. We had back-to-back weeks with guests on the show, so I hope we're ready to talk.
Feels a bit empty, actually.
Well, we've got each other. That's the important thing. We've got some listener questions. We actually got a pretty full episode. Shall we sort of reminisce first off the bat and talk about the last couple of weeks? It's pretty full on.
I think we should. I think we should definitely just go back and sort of just touch over a couple of things that we, learned from 36 and 37, because I'm not sure about your sort of DMs, but I've been having a lot of people, message me asking, more questions about it and, just sort of making comments about it. And
the feedback I got was really, overall, we got a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah, agreed.
Compliments to our interview style. We weren't too harsh on Raymond last week.
I don't think we dropped the hammer. No.
Look. We asked some hard hitting questions, but we were also respectful and didn't want to throw the guy under a bus.
Yeah.
And then and the week before was it Matt from Provenance?
Yeah.
Look, I think with the limited information about the product we had, we did really well, and it'll be exciting to touch base with Matt down the track and see how they're going.
What was your takeaways from the Provenance interview?
I think there's a lot of unknowns. I'd actually be really, really curious to see what the product looks like post-launch.
Yeah.
Like, not to sound overly critical, but I feel like there wasn't enough information for us to really gauge what product we were going to get and what would differentiate them in the market as far as grading goes. Look, I have my own doubts over new grading companies, and as Matt alluded to, there are a couple of guys that come from watchmaking backgrounds that have sort of trained in grading now. So I did want to delve a little bit more into that, but now I'm more we'll wait and see. And we'll see how the product evolves.
Yeah. So I think that was probably my reflection too. I think the question that I missed or I didn't ask was what's the transferable skills from being a watchmaker into a grader? Because I think that's something that we should have asked, because either the skills are transferable and we didn't realize that, or the skills aren't transferable and then there's that sort of steeper learning curve that you have to go through.
Yeah.
So, and I think for me, that was important in that space. But, I think we did address part of that.
Yeah.
And so I think we almost need like a comical noise when we undergo a segue, because I want to ring that bell already. So
you want to ring the bell? Let's go. Let's segue.
We're only 5 minutes in, but
you're taking the first segue. This is a first, I think.
But to be fair, it's actually in our rundown. So can you just click on the link that says TCG Grading Fakes?
Ooh.
So this came up in my Facebook feed this week, and we can put the link up
in the show notes
onto the socials, because this was posted onto Sports Cards Addicts Australia, and basically it was the direct communication between a client of TCG. I suppose I probably shouldn't name names on the show because I haven't asked his permission, but basically he submitted a card for grading and it came back graded, but then it turned out that it was actually a fake card. So
wow.
And that was something I was trying to touch on with Matt, during the show, because, I think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, another small grading company in America this week was on one of these sort of short video reels that come up into my feed. And he basically said that the initial lot of cards that they graded weren't authenticated at all. And then what they did was to combat was they've actually changed their sticker. So he said, if you have the old looking sticker, these are graded cards but unauthenticated. And if you have the new sticker, it's authenticated and graded. So,
Yeah, I'm not gonna pull the segue bell, but I think it's an interesting thing when people talk about authentication versus a grade of a card.
Yeah. Well, but maybe, and again, we didn't, discuss this specifically, but maybe this is a very, yes, I'm segueing, but it's also a very relevant conversation because maybe that's something they can specify when they're sending their cards out to people that, these cards are graded only, they're, not authenticated. And
well,
maybe
that's the thing. Grading a card is grading its surface, its edges, its corners, and its centering. There's nothing about its authenticity.
You don't think so?
No, but the way that those four things don't grade the authenticity of the card.
Correct, they don't. But
they identify specifics about the quality of the card. They're grading the condition.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But for me, what's important is that I'm getting
if I go to PSA, it's an authentic card, right?
Yeah, it's a condition. PSA 10 and it's also authentic. And that's what I want. That's what I'm looking for, So I think, when I see these stories coming up and I probably suspect what's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months, there's going to be more of these stories because these smaller grading companies are, getting more reps. And then sometimes it takes, a while for the truth to come out. Like, there was, so just going back to this TCG grading story. So there was no timeline on that, but, that could have been 6 months because it took it until that time to work out that it wasn't, a fake card. So, and again, people talk about PSA and how they upcharge you, but I think this is where you have to remind people of what you're being upcharged for, because if you get upcharged, it means that the card is of a higher value, and then they have that money back guarantee. So if it turns out that the card is fake, then PSA will compensate that for you.
Yeah.
Whereas here in the communication, basically TCG just washed their hands of it, and there was no resolution. So
yeah. I'm just wondering if they'd be like, yeah, but the card is correct on what grade we gave it.
Yeah,
it's tough though. It's
yeah. So I think in that sense, you get what you pay for, and and again, this is probably something else we could have asked Provenance, but they might not have created this into their processes, into their profile yet. But how are they going to manage that when it does happen? If they do grade a fake, are they going to compensate the person for the value of the card?
Well, this is the question: is are they going to be putting clauses in saying they're only grading the condition of the card?
Yeah, that's right. And
if they say that, if they're terms and conditions, but we know everybody reads all of it multiple times just to double check, make sure there's no grammatical errors in the document because it's only 7 or 8 pages long. So when they go through the terms and conditions, if they put a condition saying we're only grading the condition of the card, not its authenticity, then the customer has no leg to stand on.
Well, yeah, I do agree with that, but I would probably say for me, just because I would say one of my principles in life is KISS, like keep it simple, stupid, right? So I think in this instance, the kiss it on that is that it's actually written on the slab.
Yeah.
Graded but not authenticated. And I think in that way, because realistically, if you're reselling that card, it's unreasonable for that person to go onto a website and try and find the T's and C's. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Shall we move on to 37 to Raymond Lee?
Yes. I was going to say that felt like a long time ago talking with Matt. Talking with Raymond was last week. Yes. That was a good chat.
Yeah, really interesting man. I think he's got a lot of, headspace. I think he's got a lot going on up there. I think he's got big plans. So it's already been downloaded 130 times. So normally what happens in our download profile, we would get to that probably after a week or a week and a half. So this is going to be easily our most downloaded episode. And
it's good. It's increased our visibility in the market, which is what we want. All the feedback we've received has said we're doing a great job, and it's nice to get that feedback.
Yeah, look, I'm proud. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but that's my proudest work.
Let,
I'll say it like that.
let's
Yeah.
pat each other on the back
Why
and
not?
take
Yeah.
a bit of credit where credit's due. And that's it. We've been getting PMs from people saying it was a good episode.
Yeah.
Look, it was. I thought it was nice to get a somewhat exclusive chat.
I did feel a bit like Ray Martin or something getting the exclusive.
Felt good. Felt good. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
Or was I the Eric Banner Ray Martin?
No. It was like it felt like we did. We got to have the pre-discussion and sure there were. I think I made a bit of a throwaway joke about it, but we didn't want it to be about how much did this man pay for a Facebook group. Do you know what I mean? We didn't want to turn it into a witch hunt.
Well, specifically, Raymond didn't want that, right? Well,
but I didn't want it to turn into a witch hunt style interview.
Sure.
I think by taking the money out, and look, I'm not going to lie, I'm still curious as to how much it was bought for, but whatever. Like, I think it was a really, really good chat, and
we're allowed to speculate on this now that Raymond's not on the show. So the word on the street I heard was $1 per person, and at the time when he bought it, there was about 11,000 members. So
11 to 12,000. Okay, so you reckon 12K?
Converting that to USD, that means he paid less than 10K USD. So I would probably say for him, he was thinking like that's a home run.
If that's the going rate, we could get extra tickets for the hobby hangout if we sell the group.
But we can get $99.
We can buy Macca's on the way.
Yeah, we can get some beers, Ad. That'll be our beer money.
We can get a slab. We'll be right.
Look, so my takeaway from that episode was that I think it was really good to hear his story because I think the optics of how that went down was bad. I think, and he even admitted himself.
He admitted that. He
didn't put a lot of thought into the change and the change management, and so
he'd never dealt with Aussies. Seriously, he's gone, I've done this with overseas groups. He did it to a bunch of Aussies and we cracked it.
So
we cracked the sads at him.
To that point, I think there's something to be said about that. I think Australians don't like tall poppies, and also too, Americans are very much about their name and name branding, whereas Aussies just find that a bit of like a wank. So I think to be fair to your point, like I think that is a lot of the truth of how that played out. Essentially, people just thought, who is this wanker, and why is he changing the name of our page? And he even said it himself. He didn't put too much thought into it. So
it was
to then sort of move past that and actually listen to him and what his thoughts are. I was fascinated, and he has responded to my messages since the podcast.
Yep,
and he wants to work with us again in the future. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
This week he's at the Nationals launching his product, so I haven't even considered messaging him. I think he's just going to be like, literally just running off his feet. So
I'll admit, before we went on air, I felt like we were being gagged when he said, "I've got some things I don't want to talk about."
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it was just like I just don't want it to become about the money or it overlap with other. You know what I mean? Once we had that discussion, there were some things that we couldn't say. But when he presented his reasoning, and I think we were very respectful.
Yeah.
Look, we didn't cross boundaries.
There was definitely one thing that I did want to talk to him about that he didn't want to, and that was about I wanted to talk to him about the global perspective of what he wants to do, and he didn't want to talk about that. So, look, I kind of hope in the future he will discuss that because I find that stuff interesting. These people with big ideas and big plans.
I think he didn't want them overlapping.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. He said, I don't want any negative fallout to hit any of my other branded projects.
Yeah.
And look, professional courtesy, you respect that. You go, you know what? This is your livelihood.
Yeah.
We don't want to step on toes. We want this to be a good open discussion.
Yeah.
Where we get to the bottom of what happened.
Yeah. And look, and after we move past that, it was fantastic. So
yeah.
So Raymond spoke about Holy Grail cards, which is a bit of a segue into our first segment of the day, Ad.
Yep.
So we had an excellent post from Andrew Dean. So Andrew is just a regular contributor now, and we did touch on this in last week's episode, but I wanted to give it just a little bit more time. So I think it's fair to say that Andrew's holy grail cards is Steph Curry. He put up some amazing stuff. He put up the Color Blast. He put up the Kaboom.
He
He
did.
put up a blank slate of Steph Curry. So I think he's definitely laid down, where he lies.
Yeah.
Andrew Hewitt put up also a Steph Curry Kaboom. That was an absolutely beautiful one. And then Andrew Dean followed up with a graded Steph Curry Kaboom and 9.5 BGS.
Some nice pieces in this thread.
Yeah, Martin Holmes put up a Prizm, excuse my pronunciation, Terry Henry, and it looks like a
Terry Henry. Yep.
Is is that how?
I think it's Henry. Yeah.
I'm hopeless at when it comes to these
names.
names.
Henry is. Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Terry. Yeah.
Well, how about for the listeners, we'll have it my way and we'll have it Ad's way.
Terry Henry.
Hopefully we've taken care of all people. So this to me looks like a gold scope. It's a sticker auto, a Club Legends signatures. That's
delicious.
It's a delicious card.
Yeah.
Andrew Hewitt with a Jordan rookie BGS 8.
Nice.
And Andrew Hewitt, this is a card that I think I'm going to go with Andrew on this. So this is a Steph Curry RPA. And I think I actually put in 2 answers for this. And I think, there's sort of grail cards that I can actually achieve, and there's sort of grail cards that I'll never get. And I'll put this Steph Curry into that. I was sort of leaning towards LeBron or Steph because I feel like the last few years, these are the 2 guys that I've, watched probably the most basketball of. But
yeah,
I probably appreciate Steph a little bit more. And this is not saying that I think Steph is better than LeBron. I don't want to go down to that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that I'd have to go with that. Damo put up a Kobe Bryant autograph. It looks like an on-card Court Kings Redemption. So that's
a sweet looking.
Yeah, that's very clean. Big Russ, he put up a 6 patch. So it looks like Kobe, Steve Nash, Yao Ming, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Shaq, number to 5. That's tidy. I'll assume it's all game worn material.
Yeah, so Nash, Kobe. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So Tommy Carriage put up a really interesting one. He put up actually a Hoops dual auto. It's a Ja Morant, RJ Barrett. He's a very big Knicks fan. So that's actually a case hit card. And each year what they do is they have a previous year rookie. So they've done a Luka Doncic of this. They've done a Ja Morant.
Yeah.
And then they put it with like the current batch of rookies. And it's a dual auto on card. So this year's was Luka Doncic. And then the one that I hit was Jalen Suggs. And it was a redemption, actually. So
nice.
Yeah.
Some very nice cards.
I even put in a...
Is that the select?
I think that's Karis LeVert.
The rookie?
That's a red. So I'm going to guess that's numbered to 5 or to 25 because it must be low numbered for him to put it into here. Anyway, thanks, Oven. That's a good contribution, man.
I even also put a Kobe down a little bit further. A card I can't afford. What's the checkered? What is that Kobe? The checkered select?
Yeah, so I don't know the year of this, but what they did in the early select, it almost looks like a checkerboard, but that was actually now what we call the courtside.
Okay, yep.
It wasn't labeled as a courtside.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that, or it could be a checkerboard. And then in the later editions of that too, they did a bronze that had a little bit of a similar pattern to that, but that was numbered, I think, to 49. But that doesn't look quite bronze, does it?
It doesn't look bronze.
Andrew Hart put up a rookie exquisite upper deck. That looks like a Logoman, actually, of KD. So that's
nice, very nice.
Yep. He also put up a KD patch autograph to 35. BGS
that's
graded.
A Sonics patch.
Yep. So, Ad, I think it's our turn, mate. What have you got for your Grail card?
My Grail card, and anyone that's on the... Hey, you missed one, didn't Andrew Hewitt put up the that fox?
I think that's what he's teasing me with, actually.
He's teasing you with one.
So, that's a crown... If we can just really quickly touch on that, that's a Crown Royal 3 out of 5. And it's actually like, you could call it a half Logoman. That's a nasty patch.
That's filthy. I like that patch. That's nice.
Particularly in a I'm saying this in a kind way, in a lower end product to get a logo, man. That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's delicious. Look, I wouldn't say I've got a Grail card per se, like an achievable one. That Kobe LeBron Jordan triple logo, man, it'd be. I think I said it on the episode. Is something that could only dream of owning.
Yeah.
Would love
Yeah.
to have something like that.
Yeah.
Grail cards, as far as my Grail card that I own or want.
Oh, either, man. Talk to us. Yeah.
Grail card that I own is my Kobe, one of my Kobe rookies. Just my BGS 9.5 Chrome.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great, beautiful looking card. It hasn't gone green.
What would have to happen to you to let that card go?
I'd have to be homeless for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's the centerpiece of my Kobe's. I've got a lot of Kobe's there. I've got, funnily enough, it's not an auto, but it's one that I hold pretty close to my heart. Is the closing statements?
Okay.
From Grand Reserve. So it was a set. I can't remember. It was like the player's last game. Was a series. There was a few players that they had. Anyway, I've got the Kobe one. Was the 60-point game. So I've got that card because obviously going to that game, it sort of holds a really special place. Having that card and having a story behind it. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and any Kobe 1 of 1 that I could get my hands on, but
yeah, I mean that's reasonable.
Or a Jordan rookie. Hey, look, I'll settle for either of the Jordan rookies.
Yeah. So I think my dream Grail card is that Steph that we spoke about. I think that will be for me. That will be the one. But I think in terms of an achievable one would be a vertical, flawless RPA of Darren Fox because just the amount of basketball I've watched of this guy. And it's actually really funny because I think if I sort of look through all my boxes of cards and I go, look, if I hadn't have bought all these cards, these sort of smaller cards, I probably could have bought a big card like this. So I do think that's
couldn't we all though? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, let's get rid of all these $10 cards, and buy a $20,000 card.
I don't know if I got that many, but that's right. Yeah. Anyway, there's 2 more before we move on. Adam Tyndall put up a LaMelo Exquisite rookie patch. That is,
and
then the last one is from Richard Westwood. He put up a Birdman Chris Anderson NT auto, and that is a very Birdman picture and a very Birdman auto too. So thanks, Richard.
That's a hot autograph. Yep. Embracing the nickname.
The next thing on our checklist is stories from the National. What have you got for us?
The only story I've got from the National is I saw a very a post from our friend Lane, who we had on the show.
Yeah.
He was with the Cherry Boys saying that Dale was quote unquote lit. I'm pretty sure the Cherry crew and Lane had a lot of fun. There will be many photos taken, and I'm sure a lot of them won't do the rounds because they're probably not for public consumption.
That's really best kept that way. Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of stories on Instagram at the moment. A lot of people showing off their wares.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of controversy about Beckett's new label, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was all stemming from the stand at the National. Am I right?
Yeah. So basically what they did, they put up 3 different pictures of basically new slab labels. And then there wasn't a lot of information around it. And so that created people to speculate and basically give feedback onto the labels.
The internet doing what the internet does best.
I didn't think a lot of it because I just assumed that they weren't going to be implementing it just because they were quite radically different from what they did have.
Yep.
And then I put up a couple of posts for it, and some people did provide some feedback on it. So actually, as it turns out, they created these posters at the Nationals, and then you go into a competition and you can actually win that poster. So, but what people were saying was they were sort of projecting that Beckett was doing this to gather authentic feedback. So if people said it was terrible, then they were going to can it. And if it was going to be good, they were going to implement it in the future. So
if the general feedback online was, "Oh my god, I love this new tag. This is what I wish my BGS graded cards had this tag instead."
Yeah.
Then they'd be like, "Sweet, we're doing this."
So if you do want to have a look at it, go onto our Twitter. It's definitely on there at youcantcompthis. Yeah, check it out. It's on July 28th. The post was put up.
Yeah. It was interesting. Anything else at the national though that
I was just going to say to you, Ad, if you did have to choose one of the three, which of them would you choose?
Look, they're relatively similar. But yeah, the one on the left was probably the one that I liked the most.
I agree with that. I didn't actually mind the black label one, but the thing about Beckett that makes them so special is if you get the black label, the all subgrades as 10, then you get the black label. So I'm assuming that would just be kept for the black label one.
Yeah, that might just be like it's all similar. Actually, are they the same?
The silver one, I feel like that's just sort of going back in time a little bit. Like, do we need to go back to that silver label? I feel like we've been there and done that. So
yeah. It's interesting. I prefer I do prefer the gold and black on the left rather than the gold and black on the right. If that makes sense. With the black being the background, it feels like it's got that gold tag on it.
Yeah.
Versus a gold background with the lettering. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, should we do another user question? So we had from Matthew Denston, LeBron James. Which card would you purchase of LeBron for a long-term investment?
So what have we got here? What options do we have?
There's the Topps Chrome.
Yep.
There's the straight Topps.
There's the straight Topps. Yep.
You could look at the Bowman's Rookies and Stars. I think.
Yep.
Realistically, that's the three.
They're the three, right?
Yeah.
We also, because I asked this question, I was like, do you want the best one to get, or are we looking at price points? Because if I'm like, I want to buy a LeBron James rookie, I just got my tax back.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a lot. I'm not buying a Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we have a tendency to look at a variety of price points. So
100%.
We're going to go with the Bowman first.
Yeah, dealer's choice, man. You go first. Yep.
All right, PSA. I'm gonna go with PSA 10 to start with. I think at the lower end of things, we're looking at the Bowman Rookies and Stars.
Yep.
And what have we got? Last sold, actually up a little bit. Last sold price for $1,691. So PSA 10, population count of 502.
Yeah.
So nowhere near as many of these as Zion's, but it's also not a bad looking card for those that are on the visual platforms.
Yeah.
Now, we all know currently, if you want the rookie card, it's Prizm, right?
Yeah.
So if you want the LeBron rookie card, the Bowman isn't the one you're buying.
Yeah.
But it's a good alternative. My only thought on that is, why wouldn't you just get a Topps?
Yep.
And last sold on the Topps rookie, this isn't Topps Chrome, this is Topps.
Yep.
Base card, PSA 10, $2,212.50. So literally for an extra $500, you've got a Topps, which Topps and Topps Chrome, it's not quite Prizm and base and silver from my understanding, because the Chrome's got the refractor, which is effectively what a silver Prizm is, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Price point wise, we're still in that $2,000 bracket. The Topps Chrome base, you're looking at $7,000. So if you're sort of that below $5,000 and you want a high graded card, my advice would be to get the Topps, not the Bowmans, in a PSA. If you're looking for PSA 10,
yeah.
If you've got $10,000 to spend, go and get the Topps Chrome.
Yeah.
Last sold at 7,100.
Yeah.
Pop count on this one, funnily enough, is 2,190.
Okay.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Similar pop count to the Topps base. So the one with the lowest pop count is obviously not the most popular one, because it probably was graded the least. That's why it was graded the least. The Bowman, with the lower pop count. But yeah, look, we all know Topps Chrome's where it's at. My advice would be, if you can afford it, go for it. What are your thoughts? Do you go for lower grades or do you go for a better card?
So actually, this is a really good question for me at the moment because I'm going through this exercise on a personal level for myself.
Yep.
But I'm doing it for Luca. So this is what I've just been going through in my head, and I'll basically apply these same principles to LeBron. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you're making a purchase like this, and yes, it is an investment, and I'm not ever denying that, but you also need to come to the grips or to come to the reality that this investment might go sour. So keeping that in mind, what I would also say to people too in this situation, make sure you buy something that you enjoy. Because if the deal goes bad, the worst case scenario is you have a card that you enjoy. If you buy something that you don't like and the investment goes bad, I feel like
it leaves a sour taste.
A very sour taste, and maybe you'll be quite dissatisfied with like the path that you chose. So that's my sort of initial thing. So where I'm going with that is and taking from your previous point and also from a previous podcast that we did, and we spoke about looking back in time and comparing plays to, what did we learn from that episode? What we learned from that episode was the price difference between cards moving forward into the future. The gap grows dramatically if you don't choose the right type of card. So in this instance, there's basically, in my opinion, you only should be looking at Topps or you should be looking at Topps Chrome. If you can afford it, Topps Chrome is what you should be purchasing.
Yep.
And also if you like it. And what I mean by that is, so the regular Topps card is him standing there with his jersey. The Topps Chrome card is the action shot. He's pulling up for that jump shot.
Yeah, that's more of an... they're very different cards, funnily enough.
Yeah, but again, you need to choose what you want. But for me, I've already limited down to those two cards. And again, if I'm choosing again, I think Topps Chrome is where you go. Now, from here, it's about, can you afford base or can you afford the refractor? Depending on your tax return from here. So the refractor PSA 10 last sold for $52K. So that's an enormous tax return. But just like work with me for a second here. So drop that down to PSA 8. That last sold for 8,000, nearly 9,000. Now, my thought process about this is that I think when you're buying these very special and very particular cards, and I'm doing the same exercise with Luca at the moment, and I've also done this in the past, by the way, too.
Yeah,
I've got no problem with buying numbered, graded cards that are numbered to say 88, but it's PSA 8. Because the scarcity is there. You're choosing the right. You already chose the right player. Whether it's Luca or it's LeBron James.
Yeah,
you've chosen the right set. So you've chosen Topps Chrome or you've chosen Prizm. It's a short printed card, and it's been graded, and it's got the grade that it's got. Buying that card that you can afford, I think, is the right thing to do because it's the responsible thing to do. And then if it's a long-term investment, it will still go up a percentage each 5 or 10 years. So, the difference is, so if that card's worth $9,000 now, that'll be, say, worth another 10% extra, say, in 10 years. So that will be then worth, nearly 10 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can afford to buy the PSA 10, which is 52, so that might be worth another 10%. So it's then 57,000. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's at the end of the day, like, that's what the difference is to me. So
yeah. Well, I've got a similar comparison. I was just because I've been flicking on Card Ladder.
Yeah.
So I mean, the population count is 3,300, but the BGS 9.5 last sold for 3,000
of the refractor.
No, of the base.
Yeah.
So that's a Topps Chrome base.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm in a similar boat here. I've got the Kobe. Do you know what I mean? Like mine's BGS graded.
Yeah.
9.5. But that's like a BGS 9.5 is not something to be, I suppose, smirked at.
Definitely not.
For $3,000 versus 7,100.
Yeah.
You're getting a BGS 9.5 versus a PSA 10.
Yeah.
It really depends, like the grading side of things, and this goes back to the war on who's the biggest grader, and we know PSA's blown it out of the water.
Yeah.
Of recent, and BGS aren't doing themselves any favors.
Yep.
But there was a time when BGS was the preferred grader,
particularly at that.
Yes, correct.
That generation of cards. So you can play that two different ways. You can say, look, there's an opportunity in the marketplace at the moment, which I don't think there's any denying that, because it doesn't mean that it is going to cross over to PSA 10, but it also, I would probably say the important thing here is that it'd be unlikely that it's an unauthentic card if it's come back from BGS.
Yep,
So
correct.
you could purchase it and cross it over, and I think that's totally fine to consider doing that. And just to take away from your point and just sort of continue on a little bit, I'm looking at the base, the PSA 7 that last sold for $810. So
there's price points everywhere.
Exactly. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with buying that really high-end stuff in lower grades if that's what you can afford. I think that's a really good way to get in and have a bit of a taste. So
yeah,
I hope that answers the question well enough.
Yeah, and that's it gives you some options, and I think Russell and I both agree that there's two cards that you should be targeting, and that's the Tops and the Tops Chrome.
Yep.
And it's as simple as that. Modern day, as you said, Prizm. Prizm's where it's at. I love the look of select cards, but if I'm investing in a card, I'm getting the Prizm.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Well, I hope that helped with regards to LeBron. There's some very pretty cards in there, and I tell you what, picking up a refractor for 8,000 would be nice.
I just need a bigger tax return ad.
Yeah, same.
Speaking of big boys and people who are going to be dominating the card market in the future, Zion Williamson. Let's do a Zion Watch ad.
Zion Watch, or as I'd like to say, his new contract is with Zion Weight Watchers. Apparently, he needs to stay below a certain weight
and body fat percentage too.
Yeah, like this is unheard of, isn't it?
Yeah,
or maybe it's not unheard of. Have we thought about that?
It's definitely happened before. People have weight clauses.
Yeah,
it's just a little bit unusual for a superstar to have that type of clause in their thing.
You reckon James Harden's got one now in Philly?
Well,
he packs it on.
Bang the segue, Bell. So, do you know that Philadelphia's been investigated for tampering?
Yeah, tampering. This is Harden saying he was trying to do the right thing, and now there's allegations that Philly are the ones that sort of pressured it and is tampering with other contracts. And
it is unusual for someone to take a pay cut like that.
Yeah, but didn't that happen in Golden State though when they were winning? Clay took a pay cut and then got his money afterwards. That's a long time ago.
I don't know. Anyway, all right. Let's bang the segue, Bell. Let's go back to what we're talking about.
Zion. Let's go back. Zion. So he's got to stay in shape.
Yeah, I think the real thing here is how does this tie back into his card value? So looking at his current value, he's up 20%. So I would say that people are very warmed by this, are very positive about this. I think if you bought him in the dip, I think you're feeling very, very good at the moment. And going into the season, you can already see him warming up. This is also very interesting too, because this is typically the time that everything trends down. So we're talking
trending up in a downtrend time.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're talking a little bit before about, making bigger purchases. This is the time to make bigger purchases. No one's watching basketball at the moment. No one cares about basketball at the moment. It's a really good time to be looking at those, bigger sort of cards on your list that you do want to purchase, and also taxes come back. That's beautiful too. So, super interesting. What's your thoughts about Zion going to this year, Ad?
I think he's still got a lot to prove.
Sure.
It's interesting that they've put the weight clause in, but we saw what happened on the journey last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there were rumors that he might have an eating disorder, that there's all kinds of speculation. And I think I'm now at the point with Zion where until he does something, you sort of sit on the fence. And I just, I don't see, I'm not sold until I see him step foot out of the court. I don't need a little Instagram reel with him dunking. I need to see him in an NBA game.
Yeah.
And see how his body holds up.
Yeah. Well, I want to see him in 75 NBA games. That's what I want.
At least. Yeah.
Or, okay. What's a reasonable number for them to play? Let's just say he has 15 games off with maintenance. I think that's fine. So what's that? 67?
67.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if he plays over 60 games, how's that?
No, I need more than that.
Over 60?
Yeah. Give me at least 65.
What about 65 with an injury scare when he's off for 2 or 3?
I need 65 to be.
Is 65 and an injury scare concerning?
I mean,
How many games does he have to miss before people start worrying?
I think anyone can have an injury scare. Like a scare,
No, but where like
gets
he
a
cops a
scan and
knock and then he's off for 3 games and you're like, "Oh, is this going to be long term? Is he hiding something or is he broken down or is it?"
I don't think they'd roll him out early, to be honest. They've been so conservative with him. Like they set him out for a year.
He's raring to go.
Yeah.
Game 1, he is there. I don't think he'll play many minutes in the preseason, but come game 1 of the regular season, Zion will be taking the court.
Yeah.
I hope.
Just taking this back though to his, his card value. So his pop count on his base is 21,000. That's just going up just every day. So the one that I was just looking at then is his silver. So that's actually up 37%. It's last sold for 1,485 USD. So I think there's going to be some real heat on him this year. I don't think people have forgotten about him. I know he trended down a lot, but I think this is a really warming thing. So I think if you've held on to your Zions or you bought him in the dip, and you do want to get out, I think your window of opportunity is coming very soon.
Yeah, I think there's about to be an uptrend.
Yeah. All right.
Interesting this year.
From one speculative piece to the next, James Wiseman. I couldn't go past this. I just had to put this into the. So he's been playing in the Summer League, which is interesting because, a number 2 pick that's been in the league a couple of years already. It's a little bit unusual for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
But they put him out there with Moody, and Moody's been looking really, really good. Kuminga's looked pretty good, and then they've had sort of a bit of a a rotating cast of people playing out there. But the ball's been in Kuminga's hands a lot. The ball's been in Moody's hands a fair bit too, and then even Wiseman was doing a little bit of offense creation. So that's been really interesting to see that happen. I do have a stat line here, which I think is definitely worth reading out. So it's only one game, but it's still impressive. 4 of 6 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3-point territory, 5 of 8 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 block. He had block shots in every game. One of the games he blocked 3 shots. I think for someone who is completely crated, literally off the face of the the hobby landscape, seeing him play and move the way he has been in Summer League is, again, very, very reassuring. I think there's an absolute opportunity here to be buying him up now and then, seeing what he does do. Again, if you've held on to Wiseman and you've been paying these, crazy PYT prices, and even, if you're buying a single, say, 18 months ago, again, I think this is really good for your PC. The thing that I probably would want to also comment on here too is that when you watch Summer League games and you watch the people who are NBA players and you watch the people who are Summer League players, there's this huge line that's essentially like, divided down the sand. And Wiseman in his body is an NBA body. It's just like watching men play against boys, to be honest. So I've got no concerns that he's going to fit into the league. I think his body type, I think his athleticism, I think his skill is all going to fit in. A little bit of it is fit with the Warriors, but I think his price has dipped down so much that it's worth having a dip on this guy.
Yeah, and there have been some changes in Golden State. So opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah, and they did shed a few veteran players, and I think in some ways, like losing. They lost Gary Payton and they also lost Otto Porter. I probably think that benefits Moses Moody and Kuminga more because they're sort of the pockets they'll fit into. But I still think they're going to find time for Wiseman this year.
Yeah.
Wiseman's base silver rookie is currently at $35 US.
Sheesh.
So,
pocket change.
If you buy a couple of those and, and it does tank horribly, you're not going to lose too much sleep at night.
Surprised there's no graded stats on it yet.
Oh, it's probably just because there's none out there yet, Ad.
Yeah, true. They've been a bit slow on the turnaround.
Well, also too, just the price point. I don't think people were sending in Wiseman
to prospect on him. Yeah,
it's too expensive.
That's fair.
Yeah,
it's too expensive to. Well, It depends. It depends. Now the PSA have opened up their. Maybe we'll see the market sort of come back with their below 199 offers and things for grading. So yeah, cards like that.
So let's segue into that, and I'll do two things at once. I'll do our sponsored advertisement. So we'll do our sponsor slabbed.com.au. That's SLABD.
Yes.
So Slabbed was offering the Nationals special price. So they were doing, it was $18 if you subbed at the Nationals or during the Nationals. And that translated to 35 Australian dollars. So the deadline's passed now. I think it passed, say, 2 days ago.
Yes.
Did you sub any cards during the Nationals?
I was so close to doing it, and then I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Close. I've only got
the
one card that I want to get graded, and it's I don't know if it does grade well, it's probably not going to be $199.
Well, that's the thing, right?
I'm going to get upcharged, but yeah.
In that case, you might as well pay for Express and get it back quickly instead of taking the risk and waiting 5 months and then still paying the higher fee. So, yeah. So look, I submitted 16 cards. I've been waiting for this, moment to come. So look, there might be one or two cards that I do get upcharged on, depending on the grade that comes back, but that's totally fine. So
yeah,
again, very happy with the communication from Cleo and the boys at Slab. So definitely check them out if you're looking to submit cards.
Yeah, they from all reports, they're doing an amazing job. So
sliding into another prospect who I'm pretty high on the moment is Donovan Mitchell.
Mitchell. There's a lot of trade talks at the moment.
Well, that's where I want to go with this. So we've previously spoke about him because his base PSA 10 stuff slid down to $80. It's still sitting at $80 US. You might get it a little bit less than that. You might get it a little bit more than that. So one recently sold for 52 American, but it's up and down like a yo-yo here. So the reason why this is very, very relevant right now is because the trade talks are thick.
Trade talks are real.
Yeah. So my perception of this timeline is basically going to be this. It's not a matter of when he gets traded.
It's where he gets traded.
He gets traded. It's when he gets traded. So
when and where.
Yeah. So basically, there's going to be a lot of teams tanking this year. Utah has no commitment or they've made no public, what's the word? They haven't made a public decree that they're going to try and win this year. In fact, I think they're going to try and lose. So I wouldn't surprise if Mitchell gets held out until he gets traded because there's no benefit for him to be on the floor. Because one thing, he makes the team better, and they don't want that. They actually want to lose games and get better draft picks, get a chance at this French 7'6" guy that's like a point guard. And then also, too, if he goes out and gets injured in game 2, they're stuck with this asset that they can't then move, which is not what Danny Ainge wants. So the problem that they're now facing is because they got such a great return for Rudy Gobert, they can't get the same return for Donovan Mitchell, which is a bit backwards, but that's the current situation they're in. The current rumor, which is what led me to this thought, is New York. Can you imagine what's going to happen to his value if he gets traded to the Knicks?
I'm concerned and I'm excited at the same time.
I actually think his price will double overnight.
Yeah, but I think that might be short-lived. It's the Knicks. But
I just, no, some people have said that's like Carmelo Anthony 2.0 being traded to the Knicks. They'll trade 15 assets for him and then, the cupboards is bare and then, they're sort of a bad team again. But they've actually got a very deep roster. And if they do give up a couple of assets, I actually don't think that's a bad thing for the Knicks. They've sort of got a lot of duplication in spots. And if they free up a few pieces to, bring in Donovan, they've got all their trade and draft assets. So yeah.
Excited. It could, it's, it'll be interesting. I think interesting is the word I'll stick with. But yeah, he's dropped off quite a lot. Does New York help? Who do they trade? Who does New York trade though? They have to get rid of Randall. Is it Randall?
I think Randall would probably stay. I think it would be a package around like RJ Barrett, maybe Obi Toppin, maybe Quickly, sort of something like that.
Just give it like a young player package.
Yeah, exactly.
And get Mitchell over there.
The Jazz want young pieces. They're blowing it up. It's blatantly obvious what's going on.
They don't want Russell Westbrook, do they, by any chance?
I think the scenario they would take Westbrook is that was like a salary dump.
There was a salary dump and a draft pick, I think. Like there was actually, I remember. I vaguely remember saying that there's,
So we're ringing the segue bell again, but if we can talk about Westbrook, I actually think the teams he's going to be traded to most likely is like Detroit, Indiana, Utah, all the teams that have got cap space.
Do you think the Indiana trade happens? Is the most likely?
Well, the reason I say that is because I think he'll be traded into that space that they've got, and then Indiana picks up an asset or two for doing it.
Yeah.
And then they buy him out and he becomes a free agent and he signs for a veteran minimum with, say, Philadelphia or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding on the segue. By the way, did you see publicly that KD and Westbrook have kissed and made up, apparently?
KD and Westbrook.
Yeah, there was a complimentary tweet or something, and they said, "Oh, the feud is over," because Westbrook said something positive about Kevin Durant in the media. I don't know. I laughed about that. I'm like, that thing's still going? I don't think so. I don't think either of them realized it was still going, but the beef is over. The beef that they weren't aware of.
Can I be honest? I don't really care about Westbrook and his beefs anymore. Like, yeah.
Don't shirk him off as if he's not one of your favorite players. Trigger alert. Trigger alert.
So, okay. All right. Now, okay, fine. We've gone down this pathway. So yesterday, my wife went out for lunch and took Juju. So it was me and Eddie. So I was like, great. We're going to get burgers and we're going to sit down and watch a basketball game. I couldn't get League Pass to work on my laptop. So I went through this old book of basketball games that I just had sitting there. I found this super old Lakers Thunder game when it was like Westbrook in his second or third year. So the starting lineup was Thebalosha, Westbrook, Durant, Jeff Green, and
Harden was coming off the bench for that.
Harden came off the bench. So did Serge Ibaka. Nick Collison came off the bench. It was this like crazy young team. And can I be honest with you? His decision making hasn't really got much better from his second year, and neither is his like shot making and shot selection.
I'm like waiting for where's the slide against Westbrook here? Here we go.
It's actually really funny because he wasn't putting up the same numbers that he does, now, or he was in his MVP years. But the way that he plays the game to get numbers, when you go back and watch that footage, you're like, oh God, he
was always this player.
Yeah, that seed was already being planted. It was just like he holds on the ball for, that sort of second too long in transition to make sure that he gets his assist because it's a dump off and the person who catches the ball has to shoot it up because they're that close to the basket. Like he was doing all that same stuff, It's just like, oh man. All right, okay, that's enough of that. I don't want to talk about this guy. So the last thing I've got on the checklist is Prizm Hobby. So let's talk about Prizmmatic. It's dropped. We've had a bit more time to look at it, to enjoy it. What's your thoughts so far on Prizm Hobby?
I've enjoyed the breaks I've gone in.
Yeah,
is that I try and get into a little bit of Prizm. I'm keen to get my hands on some retail.
Yeah, okay.
Just because I like opening packs, and I think retail because it's still got some silver prisms in it.
Yep. Bit friendlier price point than Hobby too, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Probably my tax returns price bracket versus the hobby.
Yeah.
Hobby products. But look, the hobby's been really good. I've only really watched the breaks that you've done. But those Prizmmatic cards.
Yeah.
They're very nice. Very nice. As well as the 75 years of the NBA.
Yep.
Now, are they different finishes? Like I know there's the big ones that have got was it Rudy Gobert you pulled out the other day?
So there's two things you're referring to there. There's a 75-year insert, and it's actually an optic insert in Prizm.
Oh, wow.
So the checklist of that is super weird because the first couple that we got were like the old school players. So I think we had Larry Bird twice.
Larry Bird, yep.
But actually, when you go through the checklist, like De'Aaron Fox is in that checklist too, and so does Rudy Gobert. So I'm not really all on board with that checklist. In saying that, they're very, very nice looking cards.
They do. The cards look smick.
The second thing you spoke about then was the 75-year parallel, which is the red one.
Yeah, I've seen blue parallel.
There's also a diamond, a 75-year diamond. Yeah, so they're really, really nice, and I think they're going to be very collectible too because essentially that parallel is only going to be out once.
Well, is that a parallel or is that a numbered parallel?
It's a numbered parallel. They're all numbered to 75. And
Oh, no way.
and if you use hoops as a stick or as a measuring stick, the 75-year hoop stuff has sold very, very well. So
Yeah.
a base veteran Halliburton sold for $50, and that's in
Yeah.
hoops, number to 75. So I think that Prizm stuff is going to be,
Okay.
it's going to be chased, and it's going to be, if you're looking to sell
It's a
it because you
landmark.
get it in a break that you don't want the card, you'll do quite well out of it. Yeah.
Now, I know that we I don't know if we'll still be doing basketball cards in 25 years time, but on the NBA 100, can you imagine the collectability of that?
That's an interesting question, huh?
Because I think if the 75 is going to be like crazy,
Yeah.
imagine what 100 years is going to do. Yep.
So, okay, actually, that's a cool parallel because what I did a bit of a investigation, and I broke down all of the parallels from this year,
Yeah,
and compared them to last year. So actually, this year there's 6 new parallels, and
they haven't got rid of any of the other ones, the
I
old
couldn't.
ones.
No, I couldn't see that. And the reason why that's significant is because it's a way that Panini can increase the print run.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, so for example, a number to 75, there's only one per box, but then you multiply that out by the base checklist and all the insert checklist. So think about how many extra boxes there are just for like introducing one extra
1 in
parallel.
75. Yeah.
And to further point that, last year's base checklist had 300 cards. This year it has 330.
Well, that's an interesting way to increase the card amount.
Yeah.
Without diluting the higher end stuff.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that in a previous episode.
Yeah. And actually, the one thing I think they've done really well is the people they've added to the checklist are really good additions. So like Steve Nash is in there, and Kevin Garnett is in there, and John Stockton and Carmelo. And so that's just people off the top of my head. There's obviously also others, but
there's a couple of duds.
Yeah, I probably think the worst was it Wang Zi?
Wang Zi.
But at the same time, that also appeals to the Chinese market and all the people that
Sure. Yep.
believe he's an important part of the NBA history because he was the first Chinese player to come
It's
across.
historical. So, it's got historical relevance. I understand that. Yeah, there is.
So it's not a full dud. I would probably call that like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, but I like seeing Penny Hardaway.
Yeah.
For the Magic goal. Oh yeah, that's a pretty good throwback player.
Look, in Penny's defense, I actually think the checklist is well curated. Yes, they've increased it by 10%, but I don't think it's a...
Do you reckon it's gone up by 1 player per team, given it's gone up by 30?
I didn't go through that. Yeah, but that's a good question.
Theory.
Yeah, so the new parallels they've got in is Green Wave, which I'm sort of like a bit surprised on that because...
Haven't they already done Green Wave to death like everywhere else?
Yeah, I thought that was in maybe Team or something like that. Yeah. So this is the favorite one though is Ice, and it's called Straight Ice. And we do WNBA breaks on our page. And we've got, I wouldn't say a huge contingency of guys that go in it, but it's very well received I've got sort of like a core group of guys that love WNBA, and that parallel's been in WNBA for 12 months, and I was hoping that was going to come into NBA. So if you think about the pink cracked ice, but then think about that instead of pink, it's silver. It looks amazing. So I haven't seen any of those cards yet, and I also couldn't find one on eBay. So I'm not too sure if that's a listing error or it's just not many's out. The Pulsar is in it, and there's been about 2 Pulsars per hobby box have been coming out. We spoke about the 75s, and then the last one is a gold wave to 10. So
nice.
Traditionally, gold cards are numbered to 10, and then when it was coming out, say in T-Mall, the gold waves, people always put gold like together as to 10, but in T-Mall it was never to 10. There's hundreds of those.
Yeah.
So they've actually given that one a number. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
They didn't increase the 1 of 1 checklist though.
They didn't?
No, so it's black 1 of 1 and black shimmer 1 of 1. That's it.
I like it. It's not going down the select path where there's 35 different 1 of 1s.
I interrupted you, mate. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, look, I was just going to say it's just interesting to see how Prizm have handled the parallels. And I mean, I haven't seen the retail product checklist yet, but I'm always interested in grabbing a box of retail.
I didn't look at retail checklists, and I didn't look at fast break just because, otherwise it's sort of, when do you sort of start and stop with this type of stuff?
You're so far down the rabbit hole that you wouldn't be able to come on the show. You'd be too busy checking checklists.
Can we segue back to Prizmmatic?
Let's do that. You had a point you wanted to discuss about the Prizmmatic card. Yeah.
So my initial feeling was, when I looked at that card, was I thought it sort of lent too heavily onto Color Blast, and to a lesser degree the tie-dye out of Select, which is numbered to 25. And I put up a post, and we had some really good responses.
Yeah, they were side by side, weren't they? You put the post up with the two images.
I did a bit of sneaky Photoshop ad, yeah.
You're pretty getting good on the technology there.
Oh, look, So my favorite answer, though, was Timothy Price. So this is what he said. I agree they are very similar, but they cater to a different market. Color Blasts are out of reach to a lot of collectors, so this gives them a sweet alternative at a better price point. And Timothy, I cannot agree with you more on this, and I actually feel a little bit disappointed in myself that I sort of poo-pooed it, and I didn't think a little bit more deeply about it. And this is probably, I think, the thing that Panini does the best. They cater for every price point. I think this Prizmmatic is going to be a very collected card. I don't think it's going to be like, say, Net Marvels, where it was sat there and people bought them and then it exploded one day. That's not what I'm saying with this, but I think people will chase and finish this set.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely beautiful card, and you'll probably be able to pick them up for, $10 to $20 a piece, and maybe a little bit more than that for a Prizm. So yeah,
that's good value.
Yeah, it's a fun chase, And if you can't afford a Color Blast, what's wrong with getting a Prizmmatic? I think that's fantastic. So look, for me, the QC's been good. The design is really good. The quality in my hands feels really good. I haven't had any, badly scratched cards or, adhesive on the cards or anything like that. I think there's been a lot of concerns with QC with Prizm, and I think fair enough too. Like, it hasn't been great the last couple of years, but clearly they've been doing something in the background there to improve that. So the other thing I'd probably comment about too is, last year we did Prizm Hobby at random spot for $50 a spot.
Yep.
And it didn't fill. It took me weeks for it. This year it's $57 a spot, or, equivalent PYT. And I did 3 boxes in the first week. So I think a lot of people are saying, the hobby market is down and people aren't going to breaks and this and that and all this type of stuff.
Rubbish.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Look, I think the market is definitely lukewarm, but it's not dead by any stretch. I think people are still looking to get into things.
I mean, man, it's a matter of perspective, right? Like,
the secondary market is in a weird place. Buying and selling, yeah, sure, with the economy, but product is still coming out and people still want the product.
Yeah.
So with budget restraints comes, where do I spend my money? And I think product and going to breaks and things is more of a priority than some of the other areas.
But if you told me a week before I was to receive my product that I was going to do 3 breaks in a week, I would have either laughed at you or not believed you, or both. Because my experience the year before was I couldn't sell it. I had to discount it to get it done.
To get them filled, yeah.
It just didn't sell. So,
better draft class. Like, I'm just spitballing, like trying to figure out what were people going, what were people trying to get? Do you know what I mean?
Look, we're 12 months down the line, and also too, we got a little bit of better view at, Cade for basically a year before it came out. But
yeah,
actually, now we look back at the Ant-Man LaMelo draft class, that's not a stinker.
It's not, no, and it's amazing how people jump to conclusions in year 1,
yeah,
and then years 2 and 3, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that draft class didn't suck,
yeah,
because they weren't all superstars in day 1. But look at what happens when you actually get some games into players.
Is Ant-Man a better hobby buy than Cade at the moment?
Whoa, there's a question.
And I'm not trying to, rip people or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, let's think about this practically. Like, it's selling out faster at a more expensive price than the year before. Really, what's changed? Like, I don't know.
It's interesting.
I think the hobby's in a very good place at the moment, and despite all the, you hear a lot of negative stuff. It's just
I think the actual hobby is in a good spot.
Yeah.
I think global economies are in a terrible spot, and people's spending has been restricted in some ways and some forms.
I don't disagree with that or object to that for a second.
But I definitely do. I think as far as the hobby, we're in a really good place.
Yeah,
there's some good products coming out. There's a lot of activity with people buying and selling and investing, and as we said, we've had the National on over in America this weekend, and it didn't look like there was nobody at the door. You know what I mean? The hobby is thriving, and
shockers.
We should actually. I'll segue again because we're going to keep ringing that bell this week.
No, that's fine, mate. So let's call this the final segue, and let's
final segue.
Yep.
We're going to be at the Hobby Hangout. In a few weeks. It's our equivalent of the National.
It's the Australian version.
It's the Australian.
Yeah.
Come to the National in Australia. Oh God. I'm glad I don't do TikTok because that would definitely have made it. It's nice to have card shows. And I think we need to put some work in and organize a trade day soon as well, or probably after the Hobby Hangout. But I think the hobby is thriving, and once the weather warms up, I would be very, very open to rocking into a store, potentially our sponsors' store.
Yeah,
organising a bit of a trade day and catching up with some people to exchange some cardboard or show off some cardboard.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm going to plug now. It's the Hobby Hangout.
Yep.
What are we doing at the Hobby Hangout? If you say hanging out, I'm done.
So we've very generously been given a spot on a table by the boys at Fast Break.
Yep.
So thank you, lads, for giving us that spot.
Legends.
We will be just there talking to people. I'll be breaking for a period of time, and then the rest of it, I'm not going to lie to you, Adam, I'm not going to be at the table very much. I'm going to be buying cards.
The time that I am at the table, if people want to come up and say hi, I'm happy to give bad advice. I will give an off the cuff instant reaction to something, and then I'll probably think about it and tell you to come back in 10 minutes when I've actually thought about it.
I put a lot of thought into this, but do you think maybe we should tag team so one of us is always at the table at some point? Because otherwise we're not going to be very good hosts.
If neither of us are there will be. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting.
We're hopeless.
I think this is going to be great. I think it's going to be an absolute delight. Yes, one of us will be at the table. Hopefully, if we're not, someone else will be at the table.
Oh yeah, definitely. The table won't be.
You can leave a message that you stopped by, and when we finish looking at cards,
we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's it. Put your contact details there. Actually, no, I'm going to put a listener question box, so you can come and ask us questions at the Hobby Hangout, or you can fill out a form and put in a question to the show.
Yeah,
that we'll sort of pick from over the preceding weeks after the Hobby Hangout. And so get those, I don't know, little checklist ideas or something to discuss or a play to do a deep dive on. Don't change sports on us because we'll get really confused.
Yeah, we can only do NBA, boys.
Yeah. But you're really looking forward to the Hobby Hangout. Should be heaps of fun. And yeah, look, I might even bring a box and break it to show Russell up.
You're on, mate. Let's roll.
I've got some wax here that I. No, I don't. No. All
right, anyway, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Adam, for a lovely evening as always.
Thanks for hanging out. It's been good. We'll get another guest eventually. Hopefully, we haven't scared everybody away.
Definitely not. Thanks, mate.
All right, thanks, guys.
For listening.
Yeah, see you next time.
Bye-bye.